Samantha stood in the ruins of her garden, staring in disbelief at the destruction. Her sanctuary, her dream, was gone, reduced to rubble. When the HOA president smirked and said, "You were warned," something inside her broke. This wasn't just about property. It was war. But what happened next shocked even those who thought they were untouchable. Let's start from the beginning. Samantha Miller had always found solace in the quiet beauty of her garden. A single mother in a modest Texas suburb, she poured years of hard work and love into transforming her backyard into a sanctuary. Lush flowers, winding stone paths, and the centerpiece, her handcrafted wooden pavilion, were a testament to her determination and resilience. It wasn't just a garden. It was her escape from the grind of daily life, a place to breathe, to dream, and to simply be. But not everyone appreciated her efforts. Her neighbors, and especially the HOA, had never been shy about their disapproval of her eccentric choices. The chairman, Gregory Harrison, and his board were the self-appointed gatekeepers of conformity. They'd sent her countless notices, subtly warning her that her garden, her life's work, was an eyesore, a violation of their rigid guidelines. Still, Samantha stood firm. This was her home, her personal space, and she wasn't going to let anyone dictate its worth. Then, one fateful morning, Samantha returned home to the unthinkable. The pavilion, her pride, her refuge, was reduced to rubble. The wooden beams she had so carefully chosen lay in ruins, crushed beneath the weight of their destructive power. Gregory Harrison stood over the wreckage, a smug expression on his face. "You were warned, Mrs. Miller," he said coldly, his voice dripping with satisfaction. The world seemed to stop for a moment. The deep ache in Samantha's chest was more than just the loss of her garden. It was the crushing realization that her hard work, her sense of peace, had been dismantled by people who saw no value in anything that didn't fit their narrow view. It wasn't just about a pavilion. It was about something far more personal. Enraged and devastated, Samantha's next step was clear. She sought help. Desperate for justice, she turned to Nathan Harper, a local lawyer known for his sharp mind and tenacity. After hearing her story, Nathan immediately sensed something deeper at play. The HOA's actions weren't just overbearing. They were likely illegal. He dug into the legalities, and after days of exhaustive research, Nathan found a glimmer of hope, a federal law known as the Federal Homeownership Rights Act. This law prohibited the demolition of private property without due process. The HOA had clearly violated it by tearing down her pavilion without proper legal procedures. As they prepared to take on the HOA, Samantha began to feel a flicker of hope, but she had no idea what she was about to face. The battle ahead would not be easy. The HOA, with its deep pockets and influence, wasn't going to let this go quietly. From the start of the court proceedings, it became clear they would fight tooth and nail. They used every legal tactic at their disposal to delay the case, dragging it on with endless motions and appeals. The harassment didn't stop there. Samantha found herself bombarded with constant threats, even personal attacks aimed at breaking her resolve. But with each passing day, Samantha's frustration turned into something more powerful, a fiery resolve. This wasn't just about a wooden structure. It was about standing up to a system that believed it could bulldoze over the lives of ordinary people. With every setback, she grew stronger. She wasn't just fighting for her pavilion anymore. She was fighting for every homeowner who had ever been silenced or intimidated by the unchecked power of an organization like the HOA. The stakes had become much higher. The legal battle reached a boiling point when Gregory Harrison, feeling the walls close in on him, made a bold and desperate move. In a meeting with Samantha, his usual smug confidence had faltered. "I'll personally pay you off, and we'll forget this ever happened," he proposed, his tone sharp, but with an underlying hint of panic. He hoped the offer would silence her and bury the matter before it exploded into a public scandal. But Samantha was unwavering. Her eyes were cold with resolve as she shook her head. Money was no longer an option. Justice was. She knew this wasn't just about a destroyed pavilion. It was about exposing the truth. The trial raged on, tensions rising with every passing day. Just when it seemed like the HOA's grip on the case would never loosen, an unexpected breakthrough came. Nathan, relentless in his investigation, uncovered a hidden email thread buried deep within the HOA's communications. The emails were a revelation, a chain of correspondence between Gregory and several board members, discussing the deliberate destruction of Samantha's pavilion. The emails made it clear this wasn't just an overzealous enforcement of neighborhood rules. The HOA had orchestrated the destruction to drive Samantha out of the neighborhood, with plans to sell the land for a highly profitable development project. They had used her as a pawn, hoping to bulldoze not only her sanctuary, but her place in the community. The moment Nathan presented this evidence to the court, the shift was palpable. The press caught wind of the scandal, and soon Samantha's fight became a cause célèbre. Media outlets pounced on the story, amplifying her voice and exposing the HOA's corruption. Public opinion, once teetering in favor of the powerful neighborhood association, now tilted dramatically in Samantha's favor. Support flooded in from across the country. People who saw her as a symbol of resistance against powerful organizations that trample on individual rights. As the pressure mounted on Gregory and his board members, their once confident demeanor faltered. The scrutiny they faced was relentless, and with every passing day, the weight of their actions became harder to ignore. What had started as a battle over a simple garden structure had now escalated into a public fight for fairness, a fight Samantha was determined to win. The final day in court was a culmination of months of tension, stress, and relentless determination. Samantha sat in the front row, her fingers trembling as she gripped the armrests. The room was thick with anticipation, the air almost heavy with the weight of what was about to unfold. As the judge looked over the case one last time, a hush fell over the courtroom. When the verdict came, it was like a rush of air after suffocating silence. The actions of the HOA were found to be in violation of federal law, the judge declared, his voice calm but authoritative. Samantha's heart skipped a beat. The HOA is required to rebuild the pavilion at their own expense and pay for damages. The words hung in the air, surreal and powerful. Samantha could barely process them. She had won. The pavilion, her sanctuary, would be rebuilt, and the people who had torn it down would be forced to face the consequences of their actions. But the victory was about more than the pavilion. It was a victory for every homeowner who had ever been bullied, for every individual who had ever felt powerless in the face of authority. Samantha had stood firm, and she had proven that no one, not even a powerful HOA, could take away what was rightfully hers. When the rebuilding began, it was clear this time would be different. The pavilion would be constructed with reinforced materials, ensuring that it could never be taken down again. And security measures were added, cameras, alarms, just in case anyone thought they could try to destroy it again. But for Samantha, it wasn't just about the physical structure. It was about reclaiming her dignity, her right to make her space her own without interference. One evening, after the pavilion was rebuilt, Samantha sat in the quiet space she had created, watching the colors of the sunset spill across the sky. The tension that had once gripped her heart slowly began to dissolve, replaced by a calm sense of peace. The fight had cost her more than she could have ever imagined, but it had been worth it. She had won, and in doing so, she had reminded herself and the world that sometimes standing up for what is right is the most powerful thing you can do. Her victory wasn't just hers, it was a message to everyone who had ever felt small or defeated. The power of resistance could not be underestimated.